Welcome to a very special episode of CrossTalk. My name is Kevin Tocci, and I will be your host for this particular program. We love a show like this because it allows us to talk about so many different things in and around the two communities that we serve, Whitman and Hanson, and beyond. But we also sometimes flex outside of the borders and bring other guests in to kind of talk about things that are kind of relevant. Our guest today is about to have his world premiere of a very special documentary. Education is in trouble these days, and people talk about it, whether it's financially, whether it's the quality of the education. What we're going to show you now is a clip from a new documentary that's coming out. Take a look.
If we're honest, who wants to roll less travel? It's harder to teach us. Who wants the difficult route?
If you support safety in our schools, you will support the National Guard to come in here and keep our students safe.
People say, these students have changed. These students are lazy.
Your children aren't learning disability, they lazy.
Get students engaged so they don't want to skip class, they want to be in their classrooms.
There are teachers in this profession who should not be teachers. There are teachers in this profession who don't care about children.
These students don't want to learn. No, the adults have changed. See, the parents don't have the back of the teachers.
He ain't slow. He ain't got no learning problem. His parents didn't give him a foundation.
Young people as a nation, we sorely need the depth and breadth of your intelligence, character, and also your clarity.
I think about, in particular, the history of people that look like me who are getting cheated.
So if you're asking me right now as an educator, what's wrong with these kids? There's nothing wrong with them.
Teachers are the most important people in the world.
They're whimpering in fear, and we're sitting here scared of them.
Because if they get it right, they'll change the world because they're in charge of the most important resource, and that's our children.
So joining us for this very conversation is a gentleman who actually has won a New England Emmy. He's an award winner, filmmaker, a gentleman who I've known for many, many years. And he's here to talk a little bit about it. His new documentary called Report Card, Danger of Failing. It's a powerful look at urban education. Mr. Noube Rateau.
Kevin, it's always an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, and I want to thank you for bringing your friend with us.
Yes,
as well.
yes. It's a very heavy friend.
It is a very, but, and if you will, you have won many awards at other film festivals, but as folks may see here on the table, is a New England Emmy. What exactly did you win the Emmy for?
So this particular Emmy, I always say we won an Emmy Award-winning documentary because we have Emmy Award-winning people in the film. So I really want to give testament to the whole team and to everyone who gave us their stories to tell. So we won this Emmy for a police documentary called Protect, Serve, and Care. You know, policing, it's still always a hot issue, but that particular time, we're talking, you know, it was Fernando Castillo, it was Tamir Rice, it was the year later it was George Floyd. So it was a very hot issue. So we did this one, Willie Gross, former commissioner, police commissioner for Boston, but well known in the South Shore area, has done a lot of speaking appearances. He was a big part of the film. It could be some stories, some national stories, some local stories that really kind of put together the relationship between police and minorities. And it was a documentary that really talked about, you know, some real tough issues, but I think people found a lot of common ground. And I want to give credit to Willie Gross, who you know, really did a good job in terms of, like, you know, community policing, explaining what it's all about.
So let's talk a little bit about Report Card, Danger of Failing. Was there a specific moment or an experience that sparked such an idea?
Well, it's funny. This documentary, actually, we wanted to do this one before. So after the police one, we did an immigration one called IMU. We wanted to do it before that. But the immigration topic between the presidential election around 2020 with now President Trump and former President Biden, immigration is a hot issue. It still is actually right now. So we say, we want to tackle the immigration issue because education is something that, that's going to be around for a while in terms of, what do we need to do to improve it? So we said we're going to do immigration. And then after the immigration documentary, we said, we want to tackle education. And it's personal. I mean, I'm a public teacher. When people ask, Noube, what do you do? Before Filmmaker, I always say I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher before anything. I'm a film teacher, and it's personal to me. So this was like, it was a natural topic for us to do.
Okay. Why did you choose the title of that report card, Danger of Failing? Was there, are you trying to, is there a message with that particular framing?
So it's funny, we actually gave the opportunity for our executive producers to give us the name of the documentary. So it wasn't our pick. It was the pick of one of our executive producers, Lynn Smith. She chose Report Card Needs Improvement. That was the original title that she gave us. We thought it needed to have a little more juice to it. We loved the title Report Card, but we said Danger of Failing because I think we're at an urgent time in education, and I wanted the documentary to kind of really emphasize the urgency. So that's kind of where it started. So Lynn Smith, I give her credit for that, but we just added the subtitle, Danger of Failing.
This is not your first socially conscious film. You like creating films that are uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable topics, but they're conversations that need to be had. How does this project compare to the tone and the focus of past films you've done that are like this?
Well, the tones are, it's very uncomfortable. I think one thing our documentaries do, when I say our, we had a fantastic crew. William Badale, co-director, Danny Donato was our director of photography, Wesley was our cinematographer. We pride ourselves in having an uncomfortable conversation, but not bias, and getting both a liberal and conservative perspective, which I think a lot of filmmakers don't do. I think a lot of media doesn't do now. They come in with an opinion and a bias. So even the regular news broadcast, you could argue there's a bias there. So we pride ourselves in trying not to have one. So, I think, in terms of being uncomfortable, we talk about conservative values in education, how, some people may not want, maybe things to be taught, or some people want a little more school choice. And then we talk about liberal perspectives about, the need for, DEI, which is a big hot issue right now, and how that's important. So we really kind of, carve through those uncomfortable issues and what are some, what are the real issues in education? Because at the end of the day, the point of the documentary is, how do we get a student from the urban district to succeed? Why is Jason succeeding, but Sally's not? What's going on? They're both from the same area. Why they're not? Why is someone succeeding? Why someone's not? So the documentary is really almost like an investigation to really tackle and try to head to really get to the bottom of those situations. You feature a few school districts here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You even go outside of this region. I think you do some down south. I don't know if you did anything in California. No, we did Baton Rouge.
Yep. Louisiana. Yep.
Louisiana. We did Florida.
Yep.
We did some filming in New York City, and then here in Massachusetts.
What was the perspective that you received? Were they kind of universal, regardless of where you went, as to the issues were identified and how to solve these problems were also something that was similar? Or did you have varying opinions as to what the issues are and how to solve them?
Well, the main issue that everyone agreed upon is that there is a lack of money. Now, the question is, some people argue that a lack of money is a result of too much money in one particular area and too little in a particular area. And some argue that there's just not enough money going towards the actual cause. Let me just give you an example, a specific one. So, when we talk about a city like Brockton or Lynn or New Bedford, The argument is that there's not enough money coming to those places because you talk about, property taxes and things like that, and there's not much of a resource table, an income table in terms of bringing money in. And then there's the perspective that, we need to offer opportunities like Louisiana when it comes to charter schools. And we're not, the public school education, and charter schools are public schools, but the regular comprehensive schools, high schools are not providing what they need. So we need to go to a different option. And we need to go to charter schools. Big difference in charter schools is what? No unions. Mm-hmm. So, being able to really, be specific in terms of what does the student need, and, being able to get teachers who they think, could really educate that student. And if the teacher's not doing what they're supposed to do, they can let go of that teacher, a particular charter school. So that's kind of like, a big argument in the documentary is, charter schools and regular public schools and kind of the clash about taking money from one pot, Peter running from Paul. So that's a real big topic in the documentary.
What would you say are some of the other big challenges in urban education today that your film attempts to explore?
Well, I think the big thing is, and as a teacher, you could be an amazing teacher and do everything perfect, but the home life for the student may be terrible. Mm-hmm. So, when you talk about urban districts, that's another component. A teacher is not just a teacher. The teacher has 5 different hats. Sometimes teachers are second mothers and fathers to their students. Right. Sometimes teachers are, helping with mental health. They're not supposed to, and there's guidance, things like that. But the reality is, you see that student every single day. You have, the ability to kind of see what he or she is going through. So, that's a huge challenge in the urban district, is that these outside things going on that necessarily, other communities may not deal with as much.
I would say I had a chance to watch this particular film, courtesy of Noube, and the different individuals that we have a chance to see. You have students, you have parents, you have educators, you have policymakers, you have other people who are inspirational speakers. You actually had one individual who made a comment. It made a comment or a statement that if the child's parent is lazy and has lazy traits and puts those onto the child, how does the child succeed? I mean, I thought there were some powerful statements in that film. How do you feel that will resonate with some of the statements that are made, that it's like, hey, this is a rude awakening. If you're a parent, you want your child to succeed, you need to be there for your child.
Right, and Dr. Umar Johnson's the one that said that, controversial, kind of commentator who...
He was good, though.
Yeah, he was really good. But, you can make the argument, what's a lazy parent? A parent that works 12 hours a day and can't go home to help their kid with their homework? Mm-hmm. Is that a lazy parent? People can make that argument. So
perspective.
Yeah, that's the perspective, But, are you working 12 hours a day and your kids are not doing well in school, then how valuable is that 12 hours? You're working. Again, it's a double-edged sword. I think Joe Pinion was fantastic. He's a political commentator. He's been on the Abby Phillips show. He's been on News Nation. He ran for senator, and he was passionate about, hey, listen, New York City spending $38,000 on a kid. How much more money do you need to spend? Where the reading level is still now on par as the suburban areas. It's a legitimate argument to make. $38,000 a kid, and we're still not, performing what we need to perform on. Those are concerns that people need to talk about.
How do you feel that systemic issues like poverty, housing, racism, access to mental health support show up in your film?
Well, I think when we talk about the 2 students who are featured in the documentary,
from Lynn Tech.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Lynn Tech, fantastic school, great students. They had really tough upbringings, but there were other things in their life that were able to kind of fill those gaps. So, when you talk about a student who's struggling in an urban district, you need a teacher who's on fire. You need a strong community person, a strong church. If you don't have those things, which some urban districts struggle with, you're going to have a tough time. Now, why? a lot of times, and Willie Spears said this in the documentary, he was a motivational speaker. If I'm an excellent teacher, right, sometimes you're not going to go to a tough school district. That's who wants to go that hard path? Who wants to go there all the time and not get, those results that they want? So sometimes those districts are not getting the best teachers. They're not getting the best teachers, so that's just the reality of what it is. Or you have absolutely amazing teachers who do great jobs, but the student's home life is a complete mess. So sometimes it's human nature. Do you want to go through that process all the time? Personally, for me and a lot of other teachers who I teach with, that's a passion for us. We love that challenge to go into that atmosphere and really try and make that change. But it could be draining. It could be absolutely draining. And we see a lot of burnout in urban districts because of issues like that. Outside issues that are out of our hands that that we can't control. I thought Dr. Zach made a good point in the documentary, who's one of our executive producers. Dr. Zach is a former principal at Brockton High. She said a lot of urban districts now, the biggest struggle is mediocrity. It's being mediocre and not being able to go above the quote unquote average. Yeah. And I thought it was a very valid point.
It's interesting you say that, because you knew Dr. Zakowicz, Sue Zakowicz, as a principal, right?
Yes, principal. She was my principal for 4 years at Brockton High School.
Yes. Many moons ago, she was my social studies teacher in the Azure building. Yes, so she has many years of education and experience under her belt, and so she is an exceptional pick to be an executive producer for your film.
And can I mention one thing?
Please.
One thing that I do want to give credit to is Brockton Public Schools were incredibly helpful in this. And sometimes I don't get the credit in the publicity that's needed. But particularly the last couple of years, and mentioned about getting the National Guard and things like that.
It hasn't been positive.
And they could have easily said, "No, Noube, we don't want you to talk about education. We don't want to be put in a certain light." And they were incredibly helpful in terms of making sure that the whole story was told. And I'm really appreciative of that, because a lot of schools are going to be like, "No, we're not going to do this." But they want to say, this is our story. And you had Kevin McCaskill, you had Sharon Walder, who's a deputy superintendent, Dr. Zach, who's a former deputy superintendent interim, and then principal at Brockton High School. Kevin McCaskill, like I mentioned before, the current principal at Brockton High School. Right. And they really had a huge part in this documentary and had a perspective that I think everyone needs to hear.
Yeah, and it's worth noting for folks who may have forgotten, and you had mentioned that because there were issues, there were conversations, there were media reports that there were kids fighting, that there were teachers that were getting hurt, that there was a lack of leadership, there was a void. Some of it was caused because of financial problems that the city had faced, multi-million-dollar deficits for past fiscal years that they had experienced. Let's talk about the documentary itself. How long did it take for you to be able to capture enough footage to tell your story? And were there any hurdles that you faced during the production?
We went warp speed. This is actually the fastest documentary we've done. We started filming in January of 2024, and we finished in April of this year, 2025. So we're talking, 16 months or so, because of the crew. I mean, so blessed, because I teach at Lynn Tech. A lot of my former students work for the production. And it's so cool because I'm a teacher. I can't do an education documentary. I'm working full time. So in terms of that was the biggest hurdle. Okay, how am I going to do this? But the team was just outstanding. I mean, just absolutely dynamite. The biggest hurdle is, you're going to these certain locations, like we went to Louisiana, and kind of getting some, raw, honest opinions. Like I said, if you're a teacher, you don't want to tell the whole story. It is your job. I mean, even for myself, I'm teaching, I'm doing an education documentary. I may not want to say everything because I still need to pay my mortgage and the car note. So, that is important. So those are some hurdles that, just getting, I teach at the time I taught at Lynn, Now I'm over at Boston Public School, which is awesome. I'm really excited to start working there. But I didn't want to talk about my school in a negative light. As a director, I worked there as a conflict of interest. So that was a big hurdle for me. So I'm like, how can I tell a story about a school that I know is absolutely amazing, but also not, bash our school and have a conflict of interest? And that's just the God's honest truth. And I thought, we told a story that was accurate, fair, and true, and people are going to see that.
And you also took on a little bit of a different role in this time of making a film than you have in the past. Am I right?
Well, in terms of that, I mean, our fundraising was difficult. So in terms of fundraising and being able to, produce funds to pay our crew and travel and everything.
But you have in the past, you were more hands-on. Yeah. Maybe you might have been behind the camera more. Maybe you might have been more of the director. I think you kind of handed off those duties, if I'm correct, this time around.
I didn't do.
You delegated.
I probably did about 5% of filming, and I probably did. I still have a good hand on the editing. But the filming, I kind of delegated to the crew. To Will Madero, Danny Donator, Wesley Morales, they handled most of the filming. And honestly, they're better. That's why the film looks so much better. If you notice, our films look better and better because I've kind of let go of the reins and have kind of the younger crew, which I'm not old. I'm 36, frankly, okay? But I had the younger crew kind of handle it. I mean, sometimes camera work's a young man's game.
It is.
It is.
Let's talk about it. Was there a moment or a story during the documentary that emotionally moved you or changed the way you thought about, the field, the career path that you have chosen?
The thing I learned the most about this documentary is I need to do better. It was a big self-reflection, yeah. As much as I thought I was a really good teacher, I think I am. I think I put some effort into it. I can do a lot better. And there was a line that got me, and I'm learning it more as I'm becoming, my life is transitioning to, getting married and things like that. Willie Spears said something that was very powerful. He said, I was teacher of the year, but I wasn't father of the year. He said, I was putting more energy to my students than I was at home. I thought it was very powerful. As teachers, we pour into our students because we love them so much. And by the time, we don't take care of ourselves. We're drained. We have no patience when we get home. I thought it was very powerful about teachers kind of taking care of themselves, for they can give the best of themselves when they go into the classroom. So that line kind of stuck out to me. It's like, you know what? Yeah, I was teacher of the year, but I was maybe not person of the year. And how can I get better and balance, my life as a teacher, et cetera, to be a better person?
Today's society, we can be critical, we can be the Monday morning quarterback and point out what the flaws and the issues are. But it's even more difficult to offer solutions or examples. Does your film do that? Does it not only pick out what the flaws, what the issues are, but offer up not only solutions, but maybe even programs that are excelling and succeeding?
Yeah, 2 solutions we offer in the documentary. Number one, more vocational education. And more vocational education that focus on urban districts. Most vocational schools in Massachusetts, I might be wrong, there's only 2 city vocational schools, full vocational schools in the state. Now there are more programs that are going to be added on, which is awesome, but most of them are regional. You talk about your Blue Hills Tech, your Aspen Valley, Southeastern. You're talking about Greater New Bedford.
South Shore Tech.
Just awesome schools, but it's very difficult. Most of those schools have a waiting list. Okay, most of the schools have a waiting list, and there's very few that are in the urban area that's focused on having their kids first. It's mostly all regional. So that is something that needs to be spoken about, because the kids who are going to those vocational schools are OSHA certified. Some of them, are able to get co-op and get a 1 or 2 year head start on education. But our students from the urban district gain those same opportunities to go to those vocational programs. That's number one. Number 2, it's a way of learning called project-based learning, and learning where you're teaching. Typically, you teach from a book and what have you, but actually you're getting an expert from a particular field to teach the students how to do something. So, for example, project-based learning is, you do if you're learning about the how our system works with the court system and things like that. Maybe do a mock trial. Maybe bring them to a courthouse, do a mock trial. Something of that nature. Or you teach them, about persuasive speeches. Maybe you bring in an author, who's wrote a book where they can actually see it and see that, okay, this is tangible. Another one is co-op education, where you're not going to school, you're going to the actual field. You're not working in a TV production class, you're working at Whitman Community Access. You're working at Brockton Community Access, Abington Community Access, rather than going to school. So you got your academics, your English and math and science one week, and next week you're in co-op. So instead of going, in carpentry class learning about measurements, which you need to, being able to be an apprentice. And those are the couple things I think are really important. How do we kind of see education, the typical sitting down in the chair, okay, listen to, Miss Sally talk about ceramics. I don't know why I said ceramics for.
It works. It was suitable. It's the first thing that came to your brain.
I can say it, but I can't spell it.
Okay. Before we kind of talk a little bit about the world premiere, which I think is sold out.
Yes.
It's sold out. But there'll be opportunities for folks to be able to see this film. What impact do you hope the film will have on your audiences, especially whether it's educators, policymakers, or even the general public?
Well, I think number one thing is you have to really understand and have a relationship with your students. Students don't learn from teachers they don't like. So if you're a not likable person, okay, how smart you are, the students are not going to learn from you. Building those relationships are extremely important. Teaching is it's a calling. It's a calling for me it's a calling for me from God. I really feel like I need to be in the classroom. That's what I'm going to be doing the rest of my life, is doing some sort of teaching. So I want them to understand that, those relationships are extremely important because you're the only consistency sometimes in that student's life. Some students go to school just to eat. Some students go to school just to eat. Just to play sports sometimes. Sometimes the sports is all they have. So that consistency in going to that school every single day is absolutely huge. So the role a teacher plays, it's the most important job in the world.
You're a filmmaker, but at the end of the day, you're a teacher. Jesus was a carpenter, but at the end of the day, he was a teacher. Something to keep in mind.
That's my boy.
That's right. I know we've already just teased it, that the world premiere. When is it taking place?
So it's going to be August 21st, Showcase Cinema. We're going to have an awesome panel. Willie Spears, one of the top motivational speakers in the country for education. In the country. He probably speaks to more schools than anyone in the world. He's going to fly over from Florida. Dr. Zach will be there from Florida. She's flying up here. We have two people who are featured in the film. The world premiere, we're going to have other screenings, but the world premiere is special. It's the first time that everyone really meets each other in the documentary, which I think is really cool because people are in the same documentary but have never talked to each other once. So they're now meeting each other, and it's going to be a dynamite event. So excited. And it's going to be an opportunity to really celebrate the work that the whole crew has done and really celebrate the people in the film.
Let's talk about the panels. While folks can go and see this documentary, they're not able to go to the world premiere, but there are going to be screenings at local colleges. Could be Bridgewater State University, could be Curry College. Who knows? Whoever reaches out to you. How important and how key is it to being a final piece to have these panels and hear some of the feedback from the audience who just got done watching your film?
I think that's the most important part of the documentary is step two. Yeah. You watch the film, but it means nothing if people are not getting something out of it. Right. So those panels are extremely important. And, we will do more screens. One thing I'm really proud of, the world premiere is the only time we charge. All the other screens are free.
Right.
We go to college and everything, 100% free. So, but the panel, you really discuss about, what were you thinking when you said X, Y, and Z? What were you thinking during that? And it's an opportunity for the audience to really, which I think is so cool. I mean, how many times you get to watch a film, let's say it features the main person, then after you watch the film, you get to talk to them. Right. I mean, that's the opportunity you get, during our screenings. So I'm just super excited about the world premiere. Showcasing has been absolutely great to us, and it's going to be a great time.
if folks want to be able to see this, how can they keep up with the latest, especially when you're able to secure different locations to show this film and also feature that panel afterwards?
Yep. So we're going to be working. We always work with the Brock community first. So we do the showcase cinema first, and then we do our next screening in Brockton, and then from there we kind of branch out and do different areas, whether it's Bridgewater State, whether it's different colleges. We're at Salem State last year. We've done screenings at Framingham State, different colleges and so forth, and even something small and intimate. We're welcome to do that as well.
Am I wrong that you actually won one of your films? You were actually up at the State House. Am I wrong?
Yeah, we're at the State House. We're advocating for the education bill that gave tuition to all students, no matter what their status was. Okay. So to answer your question, they can go on my website, NoubeProductions.com, and we have all the updated information on there. Noube Productions, that's Noube Productions.com, and they can get the information on the next steps. Hopefully we'll win another one of these. It's going to be really cool, Kevin, if we win one of these, I can care less about the actual physical trophy, is that my students will be now Emmy Award winners, former students. Right. And I'll be more proud of that than anything in the world. So hopefully, God willing, this time next year, we'll have 2 of these.
Fantastic, yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much, my friend, for coming in.
Thank you. Appreciate
and being a guest. I want to thank you for tuning into a show like CrossTalk. Again, the idea of this show is to bring you some of the things, the sights and sounds as to the happening in and around the 2 communities we serve, Whitman and Hanson. Again, whether it's upcoming events, issues, special people in the community, or even outside of it, like Noube today. Until our next conversation, have a great day.